Now, for the first time this season, we find ourselves within the top 50k of players, and in today's video, we're going to be running through my team selection ahead of double game week 24 and talk about potentially activating that assistant manager chip. Now, before we dive into today's video, of course, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as we are trying to hit 12,500 subscribers by the end of the season, and it is only possible with your guys' amazing support. Like I said in the intro, we had a cracking game week 23, which saw us enter the top 50k, and not only just enter it, we absolutely smashed through it. We're currently sat around 33k, which is really, really good, considering where we were all the way back in game week 7 at 5.2 million. We've had a meteoric rise, and hopefully we can continue. Of course, if you watched my video last week, you know what transfers I ended up making. I had 3 in hand. I went very ballsy and attacked the Liverpool fixtures. Of course, we brought in Trent, we bought in Gakpo. Both of those massively paid off, and unfortunately the final transfer we made as well was Ahmed, and he was this close to getting himself a goal as well. If that goal would have gone in, we would have found ourselves within the top 50k. Pretty much, I got all the benching decisions correct as well. I didn't want to play Konza, I wanted to play Munoz instead. That one worked out for the best with an assist for him. Of course, Rodgers as well. I said, I thought he was going to be a bit leggy. He didn't look great in the Champions League game against Monaco. If you look at Aston Villa's poor record as well, post-Champions League as well, they're really, really poor so far this season. They've only had 1 win and have scored 6 goals post-Champions League fixtures. A lot of defeats, a lot of draws come in within those as well. So I knew it was going to be a difficult test for Aston Villa to get themselves up, and the game as well was pretty flat. So playing Chris Wood was the right decision. Unfortunately, though, of course, he didn't really do anything else, but he did get me 1 extra point, so that is what it all is all about at this level. Especially, it is those fine margins. So let's dive in to the players that I am thinking about potentially bringing in. Of course, first off, we're going to talk about Liverpool. I've already got triple Liverpool, but I know a lot of you guys are, of course, going to be in the market for double game week players. I've covered this quite a lot in my transfer targets videos, and of course in the who to buy series as well on Saturday. So obviously we've kind of covered this a lot if you are a regular subscriber to the channel, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. Of course, if you're looking for more detailed analysis, head back to those videos as well. Obviously, I've outlined my favourite Liverpool player for this game week is going to be to own Trent Alexander-Arnold. Genuinely, I think with the clean sheet potential that Liverpool have on the 11-5 model, he is an absolute must for me. Of course, he poses that attacking threat as well. As you can see there, 6 goal involvement so far this season, 0.39 expected goal involvement as well. Just absolutely cracking. And I think the way that the fixtures fall for Liverpool, it does mean that he probably is going to start every single Premier League game. Obviously, Liverpool are in 3 cup competitions kind of surrounding this double game week. They're in the Champions League on Wednesday, which obviously this video will drop before then. Then, of course, they will be featuring in the Carabao Cup the following Thursday. Then they will be in the FA Cup on the Sunday against Plymouth. So lots of games before even that Everton game kicks off. But I think the way that the fixtures are working and the way that Trent's working at the moment, they'll probably see Conor Bradley play the Champions League game. And for me, he'll probably play the Plymouth game as well. Comparing him to Van Dijk it's just not really worth doing. If you've got that extra 0.9 million, please just go and get Trent Alexander-Arnold. Konaté is a really nice budget kind of defender for a top side as well. So obviously, if you've got the funds lying around, I definitely would be potentially taking a little bit of a gamble at him at 5.1 as well. Of course, some people will be, looking at the team, seeing that they've got Gabriel. I would only swap Gabriel out for Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't think I would swap him for Van Dijk or Konaté for me personally, in my opinion. Arsenal have got some really, really good fixtures coming up post game week 24. Again, they are one of the top sides on the 11-5 clean sheet model. In terms of the attackers, of course, there is going to be one leading candidate. It is going to be Cody Gakpo. I feel like he's got that left-hand side secured, starting to come into the forefront as well in terms of the goal involvements. Has got the best goal involvements per 90 as well, expected goal of involvement, should I say, on this list as well, and is second on the Fantasy Football Hub predicted points model as well. Of course, a lot of people will still have Jackson. I think if you've got Chris Wood, I probably would take that gamble as well, going for Cody Gakpo. Of course, it's a double game week, probably will play the Wolves game as well, and by game week 26, you might want to potentially look at other alternatives. However, Chris Wood's next 5 fixtures are not easy on paper. I think the next 2, you probably could see Chris Wood maybe getting at least 1 goal goal involvement against Brighton or Fulham. However, post that, they are really, really difficult, especially if, like me, and you're sat on a game week 30 wildcard. Probably this is going to be the exit point for Chris Wood, and I think Cody Gakpo would be a phenomenal player. I don't really like Luis Diaz as an option. I don't think he offers enough, and we've started to see his expected goal involvement numbers actually dwindle since he's been moved into that number 9 role as well. So I do think he's probably, you know, down there as one of the picks. I probably wouldn't go for him. And then Szoboszlai, sorry, I've said sorry twice there. Szoboszlai has been really good. Genuinely really good, going under the radar. I highlighted this in the video. The space he was getting in the Ipswich game. Now, I don't know if that's a one-off. I don't watch too many Liverpool games. I watch a fair amount, but they're not one of the teams I usually go for. But the space he was getting into, the pockets, the breaking of the lines, definitely something that interested me. As you can see, his goal involvement numbers are pretty decent for a 6.3 million mid as well. His predicted points are a little bit low. However, I think maybe the fantasy football model hasn't potentially picked up on what a good gem this guy could be. However, I probably would prefer maybe to activate the assistant managership rather than picking up Szoboszlai this week. That's my personal opinion. Of course, if you've got Trent and Salah or Gakpo and Salah, I think that third spot probably would be better used on the assistant managership, in my opinion. Taking a look at the other side of the double, it is going to be Pickford and it is going to be Mykolenko. They're the only two real assets I probably would consider. You do have Ndai, but yeah, I just can't see myself personally going for him. His numbers, expected numbers, really, really poor. And there are rumours circulating amongst Everton journalists that he actually went off with a knock at the weekend as well. So that's a little bit disappointing. So obviously do hold those transfers if you are potentially thinking about going for him, and wait for Moyes' press conference. In terms of the players though that I think I would be recommending, of course there's going to be Pickford and Mykolenko. Everton's still under Moyes, pretty decent in terms of those expected goals conceded numbers. It is a double game week as well. You would imagine they should be able to keep one against Leicester. You never know what they will be able to pull off in the final game against Liverpool at Goodison Park as well. And I don't mind Crystal Palace and Manchester United either. You know, Manchester United and Fulham played out one of the worst games I think in the last 2 seasons for expected goals created. So yeah, really poor one. But Mykolenko is just one of those that you could just drop in and out of the side. The reason I like both of these guys as well, of course, if you're not on a free hit in game week 29, that of course, if you didn't know, is going to be a blank game week with the League Cup final. That of course will be all finalised heading into game week 25, so we'll have a little bit more information on it. But of course, if Arsenal do make that final, a lot of people will have people like Raya. And that's my problem with my team. I'm going to have David Raya. So for me, having the goalkeeper, because I don't really want to play the free hit that week, in Jordan Pickford, already in the side, with an extra fixture in game week 24, a lot of that seems to be making sense, especially for my side, and probably why I am going to end up going to go and pick up Jordan Pickford this week. But of course, we'll see that in a second with my team selection. So let's move on. Let's talk about the assistant manager chip. Of course, we're going to go through all the basics and of course how the chip is going to work, and kind of my plans for how I'm going to use it potentially this game week. I'm still a little bit undecided. I definitely think there could be future game weeks, game week 31 to 33, or of course from game week 36 till the end of the season are probably your other 2 avenues to go and use this chip. But let's start off with the basics. Of course, it's active for 3 game weeks. There you go. You can't play any other chip during this time. So if you've got the triple captain, I think ideally this week would probably be a better use of that rather than the assistant manager chip. We know that it comes out of your budget as well. So you need, you know, the budget in your squad to be able to do it. And manager transfers actually eat up transfers. And of course, if you've got no transfers left, they are going to be taking -4s away from you and stuff like that. So if you've brought an assistant manager in for this week and you haven't noticed, maybe you bought Iriola and you're thinking, right, I want to switch to David Moyes, it's actually going to eat up your transfers. So maybe be a little bit more careful if you are activating this chip. And of course, it does count towards the club count. Of course, we know you can only have 3 players from the club. The assistant manager chip also counts towards that. In terms of the scoring, this is where it gets really, really interesting. So of course, it isn't actually the manager itself, it's actually the club. So if the manager gets sacked as well, that's another one that I've asked about me. What happens if the manager gets sacked? Absolutely nothing. They are just representing the club rather than the actual managers themselves. So if they pick up bookings, or obviously of course get sacked, if you went to somebody like Ange Postecoglou, it isn't going to affect your team. You aren't going to have to select another manager because they're no longer there. It would just kind of, I imagine, just change to the new manager or just be a blank outlet. I don't really know how it works. I would like to see someone get sacked and see how that one works. But yeah, they earn points based on the club's performance. So here we have it. A team win, 6 points. A team draw, 3 points. A goal scored by that team, 1 point per goal. So very, very interesting. And then a clean sheet from that team, just the additional 2 points. So looking at that, I think, you know, you want to be targeting teams that usually go out and win games because that gets you the most points. But it's those teams that want to go and score a goal. Of course, clean sheets are important. However, it's those teams that can go out there and put a couple past an opponent. I'm starting to lean maybe towards trying to find somewhere to get a Brentford in here because they always just seem to score a lot of goals. And every single time you can go and pick up a point off this, that seems to be a little bit of a broken metric. Same with the fact of the table bonus. If you didn't know, I mean, a lot of people didn't know this from talking to people at work and stuff like that. If you choose a manager that faces a club ranked at least 5 places higher in the Premier League table at the start of the game week, you get an additional 10 points for a win or an additional 5 points for a draw. That there is absolutely massive in terms of the game for me, to be honest, because a lot of managers, the likes of Slot, Arteta, Pep, these guys are probably going to win. They'll probably win by a couple goals. So you're probably going to be looking at, 10 points from them. Great. Across that game week, you're probably going to get 30 if they play, just the 3 fixtures. However, if you take a gamble on a manager that is, of course, lower down within the system, I think that could be the way to play this chip. Not only if they won that game, they're probably already going to get, between 8 and 10 points. Then you factor in the fact that they're getting an additional 10 points on top of that. That for me seems like an absolutely broken metric. Now, of course, there has been some research done into this, and the main man that has done it, of course, is going to be Rob T FPL, the absolute legend. By the way, please go and follow him. The stuff that he puts out on his social media platforms is incredible. So he's, of course, taken a look at this, and he's looked at the competitive table bonus and, of course, the strong favourites. Now, what we can see is the strong favourites score less. They do score less, but as you can see, there is a bigger block scoring more consistently. So you are, when you pick those favourites, going to have a higher probability of them scoring more often, but the bigger risk, as you can see here, is with the managers that would have the table bonus. Of course, though, there is fat lumps kind of plonked throughout as well, suggesting that, sometimes these gambles, these moves do, of course, fail. But if you can get yourself a manager that, of course, is going to be playing with the table match in mind, that, for me, feels like probably the right way to go and use this chip. There's huge upside in it. Of course, there is huge downsides as well, But for me, I think that gamble, potentially, if they've got, 3 fixtures where they're playing against table match sides, an additional 30 points for a win on the line, that could be a mega swing in terms of rank as well. Especially for people that are just, of course, going for the slots, going for the Artetas, going for stuff like that. That additional 30 points that you could get if for a table match could be the difference between a 100k finish and a top 50k finish. That's how big that is. And I think that's why, for me personally, I'm going to be looking to maybe try and maximise that table match. Of course, in terms of this week, for looking at where we want to potentially play our assistant manager chip, of course, this is the first week out. There are only 2 real assets for me that you should be looking at this week. It is David Moyes and it is Arnie Slot. Of course, you are getting that additional game with both of these guys, so that's always a massive plus. So again, even if you went for Slot, probably maybe looking at 40 points over that period for potential, wins and stuff like that if Liverpool win comfortably in all their games and keep clean sheets, etc, etc. So probably going to be looking at around 40 points over the next 3 game weeks. Nice. However, I do feel like there is a bit of upside with David Moyes. Of course, they've got the Leicester game. They could potentially go and put in a very strong performance. However, Everton, like I said, aren't usually a team that statistically scores a lot of goals. They're one of the worst sides for XG created so far this season, which is annoying, but they have definitely looked a little bit more better under Moyes. Of course, then they've got the table match potential against Liverpool. Maybe they could nibble out a draw in that one. That would be extremely nice. Then the following week, they play Palace. Palace would need to win, I believe, or I don't actually think it's possible off the top of my head. I can't quite remember, but I don't think the Palace fixture the following week would be available. However, the Manchester United one, if they were to win both of their games in the next 2 game weeks, would actually be a table match game as well for Everton. So there is that possibility that you could get 2 table matches in there, plus an additional fixture with David Moyes. That's why I'm thinking about it at the moment. Obviously, the extra fixture plus 2 table matches, I think that could be a potential way to go with that one. Of course, let me know what your plans are for the assistant manager chip. When do you, of course, are you looking to play this chip? Let me know in the comments. Of course, if you've got any questions about it further as well, I will try to answer as many as I possibly can. But let's head into my team selection ahead of double game week 24. Wasting no time, let's head into the team selection. Starting off first with our defence, goalkeeper, and assistant manager chip. Like I said, I am thinking about David Moyes. Of course, we've just spent a long time talking about it, but at 0.5 million, of course, he could be a very good option. The only way I would be able to activate this chip this week would, of course, to be downgrading David Raya to Jordan Pickford to go and get David Moyes in the side. Like I said, Pickford as well does offer the door open if Arsenal were to blank in game week 29. It already gets me an additional player in for that week when I don't really want to be playing my free hit chip. Also gets me a double game week this week as well. In terms of the defenders, we've got Hall against Fulham. Probably going to be his last good fixture within the side, and definitely a player I'm going to start to potentially think about maybe shifting out of the side with fixtures getting a little bit more difficult for Newcastle United over the next few weeks. I think as well my ideal replacement would be somebody like a Kirkes with decent fixtures on the horizon coming up for Bournemouth over the next few game weeks. Of course, as well, Bournemouth have been absolutely flying at the moment, and Kirkes definitely has that attacking threat as well. Trent's in here with the double game week, Bournemouth and Everton. I think both of these fixtures are a little bit more difficult than probably people are giving credit to, especially considering some of the strong performances that Bournemouth have put in this season. However, I do feel like Trent, for me, feels like one of those assets that could pop off big in this double game week. Of course, with the high probability of the clean sheets heading into this game week from the 11-a-fire model, and the additional 41% chance of a clean sheet, which of course isn't included on the 11-a-5 tables. Munoz is in there, but I could play Aina, I could play Konza, as you can see, both of these guys on the bench. I'm probably going to wait to see the Rob T FPL data. However, with Munoz, I like him because purely he's just a very attacking unit. I might be swayed into picking Aina just purely down to the effective ownership, and that potentially would lead me to obviously going down that route. Forest at the moment are around 70 to 80% in terms of their clean sheet numbers as well. So maybe just a kind of a little bit of a safety blanket. I do just go and pick Aina this week. Brighton at home. Forest will be looking to bounce back. Of course, though, I could potentially see Brighton scoring in that one. Let's head on then into the midfield. Ahmed's going to be in there. I think Crystal Palace, he's definitely got an opportunity to go and do something. Of course, again, we could be playing Morgan Rogers this week over Ahmed. However, I did highlight the Champions League statistics earlier in the video around Aston Villa. They're really poor post-European games this season. Only 1 win, only 6 goals scored, and Morgan Rogers looked really leggy in the game at the weekend for me, and against Monaco as well. I think he probably could do with a little bit of a rest over probably that FA Cup period. But yeah, he's going to be on the bench. We are going to go with Ahmed at home against Crystal Palace. Salah, of course, is going to be the captain for this game week. I think that one's an easy decision. Usually we talk about captaincy within the team selection, but not this game week for me personally, just purely down to the fact that I don't think there's really any sort of conversation. Of course, if you've got that triple captain chip left, I definitely think it could be a possibility. However, if Liverpool were to make the Carabao Cup final, there is another opportunity in 33, I believe, which does look a better set of fixtures. However, you would miss out on this double game week, and of course then would be banking Liverpool to progress to the next stage of the Carabao Cup, which, you know, there's a lot of if, buts and maybes, and I think if I've got that triple captain chip this week, I am just going to activate it, and I would play it on Mohamed Salah if I did have it left. Brian Mbeumo, looking at Spurs over the past 10 game weeks, they are the second worst side in terms of XG conceded, only behind Southampton, who we all know are absolutely abysmal. Brian and Brentford as well are one of the best teams in Europe for XG at home and also goals at home, so this one feels like a very good player to have in this week. Cole Palmer has been disappointing in terms of his points returns. I'm still not going to sell him though, because there are some decent fixtures coming up for Chelsea in game week 28 and 29, I do believe, that I definitely want to get my hands on. So I'm going to keep him. Again, he's one of those players that is just really highly owned. I don't think there's any necessarily point taking him out with decent fixtures on the horizon. And of course, I am looking to wildcard in game week 13. If he's still not delivering at that point, maybe of course there is going to be routes around potentially going without him there. Of course, I spoke about Morgan Rogers already being on my bench as well. In terms of our forwards, I'm pretty happy with this attacking lineup. I probably would prefer maybe Visser over Wood, but I think for now I'm just going to stick with Chris Wood for the next two fixtures. Again, one of those players that, yes, he had a disappointing week against Bournemouth. However, if we look prior to that, only Alexander Isak had scored more points in FPL than him over a 5-game week stretch. So I'm just going to stick with him. He's a penalty taker, definitely capable of picking up some points this week. He's defied his XG numbers all season, and I think that could happen again, either the Brighton game or the Fulham game. Maybe at that point as well, we'll probably look to bring in Cunha or someone to kind of dead end our team for those final few fixtures before, of course, we head into the wild card in game week 30. Alexander Isak, do I really need to say any more on this lad? Honestly, insane form at the moment. Absolutely incredible. Probably going to be around 90% owned, so we actually might get something out of him. Of course, with most FPL managers looking at Salah captain. And then Cody Gakpo, who, of course, was one of the players that gave us a massive green arrow in game week 23. Hopefully, he can deliver yet again on that left-hand side. Of course, I am filming this before the Champions League games on Wednesday night, so hopefully he makes through all of those as well. That is my team selection ahead of double game week 24. Of course, I will be live for the deadline around 7:15 in the morning, so if you are an early riser and want to, of course, come and ask me some questions or get your team rated by me, head over to my my stream on the deadline, or hit that subscribe button as well if you are new around here with bell notifications, so you will be notified when I do go live on Saturday. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck in double game week 24.